right. Today on our show, we have Bobby Imamura. I'm hoping I'm saying your last name right or that is close enough.
Close enough, man.
Okay, cool. And Bobby is a school teacher, but also a runner. And did you just finish wrapping up your sixth marathon major?
Yes, I did. I
Or-
just ran London
Okay.
a few weeks ago.
Nice. And you have an interesting journey, and a lot of your uh, kind of what we want to talk about today is your work with ALS and as a I don't know what do you to call like not so you're working with wheelchair athletes, but what would your role in that be? Like what's your position? I'm not sure what to call your like title in that relationship.
Yeah, I've ran a few marathons, pushing people with ALS in a running wheelchair. So I guess
Okay.
I'm the legs.
The
I always say
push.
I'm the legs and the lungs, and they're the inspiration
Ah,
that gets me through it. So
okay,
it's
the
it's
legs and
it's
the
cool.
lungs. I like that. All right, cool. Yeah, so I watched the YouTube documentary that I'm not sure who was it with TCS that put that out, or I'm not sure who like organized the documentary. Which we'll link in our description, by the way.
Yeah,
But
it was a
okay,
TCS marathon. I don't
okay,
know
cool.
how you if you know how it came about, but they have a teachers that inspire kind of and run contest where they kind
Okay.
of give entries to New York Marathon and stuff. And I won it, and they made the documentary on
Nice.
me, so it was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll link the documentary in the description because, man, I was like, I'm not gonna lie, I was getting a little emotional watching it. But you were too in the video, so it was like that didn't help. But
Yeah, no, it was pretty embarrassing, but because I'm not much of a crier, but
yeah,
that thing gets me all the time too.
I mean,
So you're not alone.
okay, cool, all right, I
Yeah,
get
I've
it
had a
though,
lot of
man.
yeah. Yeah, it was funny
Um,
because I ran for TCS at London, and a lot of people came up to me like, "I've cried so many times watching you." And I'm like,
no
"Oh, I don't
way.
even know who you are, but hey, thank you. It's great."
That's awesome. So maybe let's take it back a little bit because you haven't been a marathoner all your life, or I don't even know. It seems like you started later in life. I'm not sure if you ran your whole life or if just started running marathons later. Maybe walk me through that so we can get a baseline of where you came from.
Yeah. So growing up, when I was little, I used to play like baseball, basketball, soccer. I played a lot of soccer and baseball, basketball. Play those baseball, basketball in high school, and then
Okay.
in college, just I played roller hockey just for fun, I guess you'd say. And then yeah, like I've always been really competitive. And so in my 40s, one of my best friends who I teach with, was trying to egg me into running a marathon. And my wife's like, "Oh, you can't run a marathon." And I was like, "Oh, I can run a marathon." And so that's kind of how I started. I remember my first run, I think that was in March, and the marathon we are going to run was Long Beach, and it was in October. And,
Uh-huh.
I ran a mile, and I was like, "What the hell am I getting into? Like, this
Yeah.
was really hard." Right. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but like running, it just kind of got addicting. And as a competitive person in your 40s, it's like you can
Uh-huh.
kind of get competitive with yourself, which I did, and obviously saw the improvement, and been running ever since, kind of thing, right? So
Yeah, I know. I was kind of the same way. I mean, I started when I was 33, around that age. And same thing. It wasn't that someone said I couldn't do it, but was looking at other runners and marathoners who kind of, you always see those posts on social media and the medals and the short shorts and everything. And I was like, man, I could do this. I could run a marathon, no problem. And same thing. I think I ran the first time I ran a mile. I was like, what am I doing right now? This is horrible. But
yeah,
then you come to love it. Yeah. And that's where we are
yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah. And I
But,
remember in my
oh yeah,
first
go
marathon.
ahead.
Sorry, in my first marathon, like I bunked, hit the wall at like 18, like the normal person, because I went out too fast. And
Sure.
when I was, sitting there walking in pain, guy was talking to me about Chicago and how it was so great, and I told myself, you know what, I'm going to enter the Chicago lottery because it happened. It was like the next week or something like that, and I was like, you know what, if I don't get in, this marathon thing, it's kind of worthless. But if I get in, maybe, we'll see how that runs.
Right.
And I got in, and I ran Chicago, and that's when I was like, oh, I get why this is such an addicting
Oh
thing. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like turning on to Michigan Avenue, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, this is absolutely insane. So yeah.
So what was the first one you said? Long Beach?
Yeah, Long Beach. It was
Okay.
just a local one, I mean, it
Yeah.
was at the time I didn't really know it, but it was hot. It was like 80, mid 80s. So
Oh
it
wow.
was it was it was a rough one.
I mean,
So
I guess it helps a little bit since you probably train in 70s weather. So it's not super far off, but because we ran the Boston Marathon a few weeks ago, or I guess a month ago at this point, and it was like 70 degrees that day, but that was the first warm day, that we ran in since November or whatever. So that was pretty brutal, like a rude awakening.
yeah,
um,
no, I heard about that one. That
yeah.
must have been rough. But you survived,
And then,
so that's good.
yeah, we did it. We finished.
Yeah.
Um, so then you started running marathons, and were you kind of just, what was your goal as far as running at that time? Was it just, oh, I'm enjoying running, I'm gonna try to run as many marathons as I can, or yeah, what was kind of your mindset?
After Chicago, I would say the mindset was, my friend introduced me to the 6 Star Challenge, and I was like, oh, that's
Okay.
pretty cool. Like, I would love to do that. And asked my wife, and she was like, yeah, they seems like they're pretty cool locations, so we can do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, she said you have till you're 50, and so I finished it last year. I'm 49, so I made it with a
Nice.
year to spare. So that's pretty cool. But
That
yeah, I
is
mean,
pretty awesome.
and at first I was just just doing it, but then I think after Chicago, I lost like 50 pounds. I was like, oh,
Oh
like
wow.
this is surprising, and I started knocking some time off and stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm a math teacher, so I kind of got into some numbers and kind of got the heart rate and things like that. I'm like, oh, this could be
Yeah.
addicting. Like like this is
I was
my
gonna
type of
say
thing.
because I saw that you're a math teacher, um and there's a guy we're friends with. His name is Ben Johnson, and I think he's an engineer, but he's a huge data guy and has the spreadsheets and like the heart, like everything's like laid out specifically. Where I'm like the total opposite. I'm just like, did I run today? Yeah, okay, we're good. But I love that, and I'm envious of it, and I can imagine you as a math teacher having that like perfect, I don't know, form, like everything in like a Excel sheet or something.
It is when I'm base training, like because I want to, see my heart rate and see my paces versus that. But when I'm actually
Hmm.
training, I just kind of get through it all. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a grind, especially
for
some days,
sure.
and so yeah, you gotta get through it.
Did you work with a coach at all, or have you, while you were when you were first doing that, or just kind of did it
Uh,
on your own?
I just kind of did on my own. I did a lot of research, and saw a lot like about with MAF and stuff. I was like, oh man, this looks pretty cool, and
Okay, yeah,
just experimented with stuff and different methods out there and different training plans, and
yeah.
found one I like. So it's cool.
Are you a fan of the math method, like heart rate training?
Uh, yeah, I am for base training,
Okay,
for
cool.
sure. I think
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. Even though it's
Mhm.
so like, I mean, it really tests your patience, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
especially at the beginning, you're like, I'm walking, like that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing right now. Like, so
It's
yeah,
so hard. It's so hard for people to do. And I that's generally how I train, and I did a while of the just pretty strict heart rate training. But you have to give up the idea of like Strava and people seeing your paces and trying to impress people, because you're not impressing anyone, including yourself.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And like people invite me on runs. I go, oh no, I can't run with you. Like, but you're like, they see my times for marathons. Like, you're
Right.
so fast. I'm like, oh, but right now I'm running like 14-minute miles. You don't want to run
Right.
with
Right.
me.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Cool. So you did the heart rate training. What was the time? What was your first marathon, by the way? Like your finishing time?
It was 4:32.
Okay. Yeah, which
So
is pretty. Yeah, that's a pretty typical first marathon. And then
yeah,
you've
yeah.
clearly progressed since then. But I did want to. I want to be cognizant of your time, which, by the way, how much time do you have? Because I forgot to ask that in the beginning.
Oh, I have till 8:30 this
Okay,
time, so I have
cool.
an hour and 15 minutes. I'm good.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So
Plus,
yeah,
if class starts and we're doing this, the kids probably might enjoy that. They probably
yeah,
better than me
yeah.
teaching, right?
Right,
So,
exactly. Nice. Cool. So yeah, so you started out, so you did your first marathon at 4:30, progressed since then, and a lot of your running now, or at least how we came across you, was your work with ALS athletes, which, if you don't know, ALS, it's Lou Gehrig's disease. I forget. I know like the words about like arterial lateral sclerosis. I forget exactly how to say it, but I know that's close.
it's
Um,
close.
okay,
Yeah.
and and uh, and kind of your work with them, which I think a lot of times people will see different wheelchair athletes and not know maybe even which group they're with, because there's different, different charities running during a race. So maybe talk about specifically your work, even, or the foundation that you work with, and kind of how you got involved with that in the first place.
Okay, well, it kind of started, I guess, in Chicago when, I was running it and I heard the crowd coming down Michigan Avenue, and I was like, wow, this is something that is pretty incredible. Like, I didn't know that was how the crowds
Hmm.
were at marathons until then, really. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, and also I saw a husband and wife, pushing, and I was like, wow, if you can give that to somebody that can't get it otherwise, that'd be a pretty cool
Yeah.
thing. Because to me, it felt like I was a pro athlete, because in your 40s, when you have millions of people cheering for you, I mean, how
Right.
often does that
Yeah.
happen, right?
Right.
And so I was like, man, if I can kind of do that, that'd be really cool. And around that time, my wife, her mom had Parkinson's, and so she was wheelchair bound. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
maybe I can run a marathon with her, or half. And I kind of looked into getting wheelchairs, and then she passed away before I can do it.
Hmm.
So it's kind of
Oh, wow.
unfortunate. And then that kind of that mindset kind of always, and the idea kind of always lingered. And then
Hmm.
my buddy Chris Beckett, he got ALS. He got diagnosed when he was 30, and he's such a great guy and stuff. And so I
Yeah.
started talking with him, hanging out, and then I just started running, and all of a sudden on a run, I kind of was like, oh man, maybe I can give Chris that that
Oh,
crowd
cool.
that he would love. I mean, he used to play baseball and stuff, and so I know he was an athlete, and obviously, if you get
Hmm.
ALS, a lot of that part of your life is gone. And
Yeah.
so one day I just kind of texted him. I didn't want to even call him. I was kind of embarrassed. And I was like, hey, you want to, you mind if I ever push you in like an LA marathon? Because that's really close. We live in LA. And he was like,
Uh-huh.
oh yeah, hell yeah. He's like, let's do it. And yeah, it was a really cool journey. It was great because he was really competitive. He kind of saw it, and
Yeah.
I think about a minute after he texted me, he's like, the world record is 350 or 258. I was like, oh, okay. I thought I was just going to push you, but I guess we're going to go after this. And so yeah, so we
Wow.
fundraised for the chair, got the chair. It was cool. I pushed
Whoa.
him, and it's been such a great journey. Just the training
Yeah.
runs. I mean, I didn't think he was actually going to train with me, but he was like, "Oh, how often do you run?" I go, "Oh, 6 days a week." He's like, "Oh, can I join you for like two of those?" I was like, "Sure." I was like, "But I run at like 4 in the morning because I have three kids," and I was like,
Sure.
"I don't want to affect my life and my kids." And he's like, "Oh, that's okay." And so, like, sure enough, like, I think the first run that we had, he was there at like 4 o'clock,
Really?
and we did we did a run. I
Whoa.
think we did like intervals that day, and it was uh it was really cool. And yeah, it was just a neat experience to give him, because he was wheelchair bound, and he really
Yeah.
couldn't do this anymore. But at the same time, he was competing. He was egging me on, he
Yeah.
was cheering me on, and obviously inspiring me to push myself harder, and do all that. And so unfortunately at the time, COVID hit, and so
Hmm.
we really want to do the 6 stars together. But so COVID
Yeah.
hit, and so we're like, you know what? We're running like all through the pandemic, with the mask and everything, and
Hmm.
so finally we found a live race in Utah, and so that
Okay.
was our first marathon. That was
Wow.
in May, or late April, of 2020, 2020, 20.
That's a whole. It's all a time warp. Nobody knows. Yeah.
got us into Boston.
Whoa.
Uh,
Hold on. So you
and
ran at 30 you ran at 307 with a wheelchair?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Oh.
it's 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 incredible. I mean,
So
it's my PR, because when I
that's
hit the wall,
crazy.
yeah, well, when I hit the wall at 20, usually I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just stop, take a break. But you look down and you see Chris.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Because when I watched the documentary, it said 307 Boston qualifying, and I just
Yeah,
kind of assumed that you ran that by yourself and then qualified for both of you. So that's wild though. Because so you were basically 9 minutes off the world record then, right?
yeah, yeah. And that was kind of the
Wow.
goal because
Hmm.
things happened. We actually got into New York kind of surprisingly,
Hmm.
and that was during the time when all the marathons were in the spring or in the fall. Sorry, and so
Oh,
LA
right, right.
Marathon was the same weekend, and we were going to run LA. And I asked Chris, I go, well, do you want to run LA or New York? And he's like, oh, we want to run New York. I go, okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
run New York, and so we ran New York that year. That was 2021.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Man. I mean, New York is insane. It's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
party from beginning to end.
It is, and I didn't realize what kind of difference I was making on myself. Really, I mean, because you run
Yeah.
by it, and I mean, you see people in tears, cheering you on because they
Yeah.
see what you're doing, and it's an amazing thing. And even going to like
Mhm.
we saw, and I met like, have you heard of Roderick Sewell? He's uh
I
he's
don't
a W
know.
amputee. He's the only
Oh,
man
okay.
that's finished the Ironman as a W
Oh,
amputee. And
whoa.
so I met him and started talking with him and started talking with other athletes with disabilities, and that was probably one of the most powerful things,
Whoa.
because to he's like, look at your kids, sorry, he's like, your
Yeah.
your kids are learning to talk to us like normal athletes. He's like, and that is
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's pretty powerful. And that's always stuck with me, that it's, yes, I'm running for myself, but it's for the families I'm affecting. It's for my kids.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's obvious. Yeah, that's an amazing example of just, yeah, seeing these athletes and, just you being there, running with them, saying you belong here to this race is for you, for everyone, who just because maybe you're a little bit different, you have a disease, you have an amputee, stuff like that. It's like you still do the work, you still are persevering and doing all those things that everyone on this course is doing, which is pretty awesome. So did you
And
know? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, it's just and also too, Chris brought his whole family out, and
Mm,
ALS is such a disease. It affects just not only the person, but the caretakers, the community, and everybody. And they all came out and they were cheering us on, and
hmm.
it's very powerful to do. I mean, I did the same thing with Steve the next year through TCS, and they still talk about that, how it's the only positive that they had in this disease. And
Mm,
it's for me to help give that. That's amazing. I mean, that's kind of why I did it. I mean, that's kind of why I would like to do it more, just because,
yeah,
and I've talked to them about it, and they've said, oh yeah, this is something that the gift that you gave us was pretty awesome. You can't describe
yeah.
it. And so it's cool. So,
What so did you knew Chris before he had ALS?
yeah, kind of. I mean, I knew him
Okay.
right around when he was diagnosed initially.
Okay.
So yes, yeah,
Okay.
him and his fiance at the time and my wife worked together. So they're
Gotcha.
really good
Okay.
friends. And so yeah,
Okay. So yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like through a program or something that you got connected with him. So it was actually a mutual friendship type thing.
Yeah, and it's funny
Okay.
because yeah, you said if you run for a foundation, I don't run for a foundation. I just run for
Yeah.
myself.
Okay,
It's
cool.
just me and him. That's kind of how it started,
Yeah.
and it's something that and same with Steve. It's just yeah, I don't
Yeah.
fundraise or anything like that
Yeah.
because I don't really do it. I just do it for I want to do it. That's
Yeah.
kind of
No,
why.
that's I think that's cool. Yeah. And so can you give me, maybe people who haven't had who haven't seen the disease in person or even know much about it or how it affects people, what what are some misconceptions or things about it that, or even just how it works that people don't know about, that um maybe you
Yeah, I
can
mean,
go into a little bit.
yeah, it starts off really minimally, I would say. Like for Chris, it started in his, I believe, his left foot,
Mm,
and just kind of, it's kind of strange because he's saying, and Steve kind of said the same thing, where it's like you notice you're just becoming weaker and you don't know why, and you're not quite sure what's happening, and usually the diagnosis takes a long time because they have to rule out like all these different things, and so
yeah.
it takes a long time to get to ALS, like
I feel
usually
like
like
I'm
a
getting
year.
weaker, but I'm pretty sure that was turning age 41.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, man, I'm getting slower. Like, what's going on? I go, oh, that's right. I'm almost 50. I gotta start weight training more. I gotta start, getting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
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 But yeah,
Uh,
so yeah, but yeah,
and
so
then
that's kind of how it starts,
mhm,
and then I mean, it pretty much it, it it affects your nervous system and your muscular system, and so after a while, you can't walk, you'll lose all the function of your limbs, and like after a while you can't eat on your own, you'll have to need a feeding tube, and then if it gets if you get really progressed, like for example Chris had a trach, and now he has to breathe on a machine, so I mean it gets pretty crazy, pretty bad. Like I said, but it's crazy because mentally, like Chris is still there.
yeah, I think that's what a lot of people maybe don't understand too, is that
Yeah,
mentally it's the same, but just they can't express that obviously, except through a computer or something.
yeah, for sure. I mean, he has this little eye gazing technology and stuff. So it's he's the same person though. Like we'll still crack jokes and stuff, but
Yeah.
the timing of his punchlines are off because he has to type what he
Yeah.
wants to say. So it's not as
Yeah.
good, but it's still great to hang out with him, and we still. Yeah, still hang out, watch basketball games together. We'll still play board. I played, we play board games too still. And so it's kind
Nice.
of fun,
So he's
still hang out with
still
him.
so when was Chris diagnosed with it?
He was diagnosed, oh man, I'm going to mess this up.
That's okay.
It's probably been about 5 years now, 5 or
Okay.
6
So
years now. So he's been a while.
what's the life expectancy once you're diagnosed? Um,
So they say like 3 to 5 years,
oh
but
wow.
because he got a trach, his is gonna it last longer.
Oh
So
really?
that's yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So yeah,
Okay.
and my other partner I ran with Steve, he passed away in October. So
Really?
yeah, that was a little
So
sad.
maybe that's a good transition. How did you end up transitioning from Chris? Because you were running with Chris for a couple races, and then I think I saw in
Yeah.
the documentary that um he couldn't run with you anymore. I wasn't sure why or whatever.
So, I mean, and that's another good thing to see. A lot of people think that I'm doing all this work by pushing people, but to get them there, that's a lot of work and wear and tear on their body.
Mm. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Because just flying with a wheelchair, flying across country.
Hmm.
He had to be in these uncomfortable spots because they really can't shift their body around. They need their caretaker to do it.
I guess that's
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah, and so it's so he was pretty exhausted by the time we got to New York. And I mean, obviously, he had a great time. He loved it, and his friends were there and everything. But he said it's a lot. I can't do
Mm.
this again. And so, that was pretty tough because we were scheduled to run Boston that year,
Oh wow.
and so I had to run Boston by myself. It's like I qualified with
Hmm.
somebody, and to not be there with a teammate, that
Yeah.
was rough. That was I say it's kind of like I was like a shell of myself because
Mm.
all my emotions were just it was horrible. So,
Hmm.
but at the same time, you still run for it because he wanted me to do it. So, I still did that. But yeah, but back to your point though, I mean, I think it's an incredible wear and tear on his body. And that's why he stopped. I mean, I even told him, I go, hey, I'll drive you out to Boston. We can take like a week to get out there. But he was like, no, I can't do it anymore. I said,
Yeah.
all right. I was like, I guess that's
Yeah.
it then.
And
So
then
he hung him
so
up.
yeah, man. And then so
Yeah.
you ended up getting, how'd you get in contact with Steve then, the next partner that you worked with?
So yeah, so like I said, TCS had a contest, a runners contest, and so I
Hmm.
won it, and the documentary was being made and stuff, and the director, she was like, I don't know who actually did it, but they hooked me up with another running partner. They say, well, if you want to run New York, do you want to push somebody in New York? And I was like, oh man, that would be amazing, to do that, especially just
Hmm.
yeah, to give somebody else that opportunity. And fortunately, they kind of linked us up. Steve lived in San Diego, so it wasn't too far to do training runs and stuff with him as well.
Okay.
And that was a cool thing. Just like Steve or just like Chris, he wanted to train. He just didn't want to just show up.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important too because it turned out to be a real blessing that Steve did or Chris did run with me so many times. I mean, we probably ran each other about 50 times
Yeah.
throughout our journey. And so, because when we were in New York, he had no audio function. He couldn't talk. He couldn't speak. He
Oh.
couldn't move.
Oh wow.
And so I kind of, but because I just knew, what he needed and stuff, I think that kind of helped, and
Hmm.
we were able to get us through for sure. Steve
Wow.
was farther along. He could speak and stuff, so we were able to communicate much easier. And so that was, but still, nonetheless, we ran like 3 or 4 times before New York, so that was good to get that.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. And then so Steve has since passed away from ALS. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
He passed away in October, late October, so that was tough.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
What's one of the like what's one of your favorite memories from, aside from just the obviously running a major marathon? Is there anything that stands out to you as far as just, something that you might not have thought would be, but could be just a training run or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, because so we live in the Los Angeles area, and a lot of times we'll run on the Strand, which is like this little beach path by here, and
Mm,
and we'll run in the chair, and so just the random people that will stop us, or cheer us on, or mainly just because like they a lot of people have a story about ALS, and they'll stop
mm,
us on the side of the road and they'll talk to us about it, and just they tell me how amazing it is to see somebody with ALS out and active, and
yeah.
that I didn't really realize. One of Chris's big things when we started this journey was awareness, spreading the awareness of the disease, and start just spreading the awareness. I mean,
Yeah.
finding the cure is probably impossible. Who knows if it'll ever happen? But
Yeah.
at least if we're aware and research is being done and being advanced, that's all we can do at this point with the disease,
Hmm.
and so that's what I try to do, for
Yeah.
Chris, for Steve, because that's both of them. That's kind of what their main thing was.
Does it make you feel, running with somebody in a race or just on training runs like that, does it make you feel more positive about humans in general? I feel like I feel
um,
like I feel like people coming up to you, like I feel like I would at least be like, okay, there's humanity is still intact in some way.
yeah, no, no, for sure, you're totally right because for a time there, especially like during COVID, it was a
Yeah.
little sketchy to run,
Yeah.
especially running with a mask and things like that. But
Yeah.
it does help me understand people, compassions and things.
Hmm.
Yeah, and feel for people. And yeah, I'm very fortunate that people have come up to me and even around town they'll come up to me and talk to me about it and I'm amazed. I really am amazed that people will,
Yeah.
will do that. So,
What just from a curiosity perspective, what is the hardest thing about running with a wheelchair? Because I always when I see you, even you running with a wheelchair, you're not like a huge guy. Like I would say, I don't know how tall are you?
I'm about 5'9", 5'10",
Okay,
weigh
but
about
you're not like
175.
6'4", like a
Right.
linebacker. So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like I've always interested how much strength does it actually require, and, and is it hard to push uphill or even downhill? I guess making sure it doesn't fly away.
Yeah, it's I mean, obviously the inspiration's there. But yeah, but the actual physicalness of it, it's kind of
Mhm.
weird because you can't really use your arms. If you can't run with your arms at all. You have to hold
Yeah,
on to the chair. And you have to be a little bit upright. Which is, it's okay as well. But really going up
yeah,
hills is tough. That's kind of where you really feel it. But then the reward is coming down the hills. But you're right though. I mean, to actually run down hills though, you're actually using a lot of your arms because you're pulling back on it. You don't want it
right.
to take you down the hill
Are
and
there
you're out of
brakes on
control.
it?
There are, but I really only use
Oh,
them at like a
okay.
stoplight because
Oh, okay.
it's kind of just like a parking brake. It's nothing like you'd
Gotcha.
want to run with.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
It's
so
not.
it can get a little sketchy, and that's why in New York you saw my chair broke,
Yeah.
and so the way that we had to do it, and it broke at mile 8. So I 18 miles to do this, and so pretty much we'd run up the bridges and then have to walk down because I
Oh,
couldn't
really?
run down the hills because I would lose control. And when running with somebody, I mean, safety is the number one thing. I mean, yes, you want to go
Yeah.
fast, but you want them to feel safe. You want to you
Yeah.
want to feel like you're in control for sure because you don't
Yeah.
want to lose control of that thing. I mean, that's some precious cargo that you're pushing. So
Yeah. It's not like a
so
Red
yeah.
Bull challenge where you're going down on.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly. So yeah, so in New York, I was walking down all the bridges because of that, and so
wow.
but it's you
Yeah,
have to
because I
adjust.
saw in the video, is it like the yoke or like basically the thing that you hold on to, the steering wheel, or I don't even know, handlebars,
Handlebars,
that
yeah,
it
yeah.
broke the frame. Did the frame break? Is that what happened?
Yeah, the
Like,
frame boy, the
okay.
the joint. So it's welded from the handlebars to the main part of the chair, and
Yeah.
so that joint snapped, and
Oh, wow.
so like it was done. I
Yeah.
mean, nothing had happened on the training runs, obviously. So
Yeah.
you just kind of manage. And I mean, the main
Mhm.
thing was we came all this way. This documentary is being made about me. It's like I have to finish. Like there's
Right.
no way
Right.
way around it. Like I gotta
Right.
finish and figure out how to do it. And Steve was he was like, "Oh, can I do anything?" I'm like, "Dude, you can't move. Like, what are you gonna do to help me?"
Right.
But
Yeah.
so yeah. So the main
Yeah.
thing, after it took me a little while to figure out how to steer it, but after that, the main thing I was like, I stopped and I was like, "Hey, Steve, you enjoy this race. Don't worry about
Yeah.
what's happening back here. I'm gonna get us through this." But
That's
because that's the
cool.
main thing. He's such a nice guy. I didn't want him to being all like worried about
Mhm.
me this whole like 18 more miles, right? But I
Right.
just wanted him to smile and enjoy the ride because this was his ride,
Yeah.
and he did. And
That's cool.
yeah, we always talk
Nice.
about that afterwards about what it was like, and so yeah,
I mean,
it was
sometimes it's
cool.
like part of the adventure, I guess. Things go wrong.
Oh yeah, I mean, it'd be too easy if it was smooth, right? But yeah,
Yeah,
it
right.
was, you know, yeah. If I ran a great run and stuff like that, that would have been too simple, right? This
Yeah.
was made for drama. So
So, have you ever run with a stroller before? Like a jogging stroller? Is it I went because I was wondering how similar it is to that or if it's way different.
I have no idea. It's funny
Okay.
because, like, at the time, my youngest was 3 years old, and so sometimes I'd have to go for a run, and I'm like, "Well, you're gonna come on." So he comes in the wheelchair, and he's in his this ALS wheelchair, and he's
That's
like three
awesome.
years old. People are
You're
looking at
like,
me like,
he's fine, he's fine."
"Yeah, exactly." People are looking at me like, "I didn't know you could get diagnosed that young." It's like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, he's fine. Don't worry, don't
Yeah.
worry.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, it's pretty
Um,
funny. So
yeah, I know what you mean though, just from where you can only run with you have to hold on to the handlebars. Running that way is kind of awkward, and definitely I feel like like you use different muscles than you normally would running. Um,
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, and when it broke, it was almost like pushing a shopping cart. So I had to really hunch down more. And so
oh
that put
wow,
a huge strain on my like hamstrings, my back was just
yeah,
killing me.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for
So,
sure. Oh man, yeah, I'm
but
glad
but
not to
yeah.
be doing the stroller runs anymore. The one run, I my foot, I was running and I like my stride went too far forward and my foot landed on the wheel and got wrapped, like basically wrapped around the wheel and drug me to the ground. Dude, I'm not gonna lie, it was not. I did somehow didn't wreck the stroller, like I like grabbed it before it hit the ground, but it was yeah. My kids have
Yeah.
had some interesting interesting
Well,
times for
and I don't
sure.
know. I've never done a running stroller, but how's turning with a stroller? Is it kind of like mine, where you have to like
Well,
tilt it a little bit and turn it?
kind of, yeah. So I, I would say I also wasn't running with the right jogging stroller because, and this is one of my biggest pet peeves, is there's a company called City Jogger that makes jogging strollers, except not all of their strollers are jogging strollers, which I feel like if you have that name, they should all be jogging strollers. So my wife put it on the registry, just like picked out a stroller, and we got it, and it just had normal wheels,
Uh,
like wasn't the big like pneumatic tires. And I was like, well, I'm just like, we had already used it, and I was like, I'm just gonna make it a jogging stroller whether it is or isn't. And so I can't actually say because I used that thing to run with, and it was definitely not meant for running, so my kids probably will have back issues later on in life. um but it did have it was a little bit difficult to turn, because I mean, it did have the front tire that moved and stuff, but it was still a little bit annoying. So I don't
okay.
know. Well, so when you are running with a stroller, and especially a major or wheelchair in a major marathon, how how is that with the crowds and everything?
Oh, like I
Like
said, it's
especially going at a pace that you ran through a 7. So like, were how does that how can you even navigate or like get tell people to get out of the way?
well, I mean, so obviously the hard part is the start. But because of my time, they actually put me and Steve or Chris ahead of everybody. So we actually
Oh,
start
okay.
before everybody.
Okay,
And
okay.
so, in New York,
That's
going on
right.
the
Yeah.
Verrazano Bridge, everyone's kind of passing you up. So,
Yeah.
so it's really easy. It's better than being a normal where you have to kind of
Yeah.
weave in and out. There's not much weaving in and out.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little tricky when you do it to pass people, because that
Mhm.
does happen, especially
Do you have a
after.
bell or anything, or is that, or do you just
No, we just kind
oh,
of yell. Yeah, you just gotta yell.
yeah.
Well, because
Get out of the way.
I don't want to scare people, right? But like, if
Yeah.
I got this annoying horn or something like that, it probably
Air
annoy
horn.
me. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, I probably wouldn't want to pass anybody if I had to do that. Like, just
Yeah.
stay back here.
Yeah.
I'm okay. So,
I got you. Have you ever
yeah.
hit any like a big pothole or anything like that?
Um, so the race in Utah, we're close. So we're kind of
Okay.
cruising, and that race, it was during COVID. So it was on like the shoulder of a freeway. And
Mhm.
so at one point, like I kind of got off the road a little bit and onto the dirt. That was pretty scary, especially
Okay.
because I think I
Yeah.
was like 6:55 pace or something like that. So
Yeah.
it got a little sketchy, but managed to recover. So it was okay. But
Wow.
again, I mean, it's all, we've been doing it for so long, that I
Mhm.
kind of know how to get it back and recover. So that's the other reason why, the practice is so important. So
Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then so you're saying that that sometimes they have to move or be situated so they're not don't get uncomfortable during a race. Do you do that at all? Where do you stop at all to like if something's bothering them or anything like that?
I have had to stop, especially on
Okay.
training runs,
Yeah.
because I have a little mirror, so I kind of look at them and stuff. And yeah,
Okay.
it's the one time Chris had a little bodily issue, shall we say, and
Okay.
so we had to
Yeah.
stop and had to figure out how it worked and what
Yeah.
was going on. So hopefully he's listening
Gotcha.
to this. He's probably laughing at it right now, so because he knows exactly what
Sorry,
I'm
Chris,
talking
we've
about.
all been there. It's all good, dude. Yeah. Uh,
So
that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah, man. So, what was it like coming down, uh, like the final, like through Central Park, especially in New York City?
yeah, I mean,
Because
well, like
that's wall to wall. It's just the vibe there is crazy.
yeah, well, like you said, I mean, New York is like a big party, right? And so
Yeah.
sure enough, I mean, yeah, when you get to Central Park, It's pretty awesome, you know. Yeah, I can't explain it, you know. And I, you know, my family's so great. You know, my wife is like a professional marathon follower. I don't even know if that's something, but you know, she like knows
I like
exactly
that.
where to be and where to go. So, you know, and this was my third time running New York or second time running New York
Cool.
when I was pushing. And so they knew
Mhm.
exactly where to be and stuff. And so, yeah, Central Park is awesome. I mean, usually I see my family there too. And it's just so cool. I mean, like I
Yeah,
said, just the whole vibe of people just cheering us on like their life depended on it, like, you know, like they're running almost or something. I mean, it was like,
for
you know, to
sure.
have complete strangers give you that kind of love, you know, it's something I'll
Yeah,
never forget, and it's something I'm so glad I can give somebody, because you know it's something that they deserve, you know, you know,
yeah.
because what they do is it's hard. Their day to day is hard. It's, you know, people say it's hard for me to push somebody. That's only 4 hours. I mean,
Mhm.
their rest of their life is hard, and
Yeah,
so, you know, to give them a break from that is it's amazing. Yeah, but
yeah.
unfortunately I can't really move, like back to your point, I really can't move them around when we're
Mhm.
running. Usually they're pretty comfortable. It's a pretty comfortable chair,
Okay.
and so they're usually okay with
Yeah.
it, I think. So
Now, do they like, because you said Chris could, I can't remember if you said he couldn't speak. You said he couldn't speak
yeah, he
at that
couldn't
time.
speak.
So
Right.
did he still have his computer? Or is that like too crazy to carry around and stuff?
Yeah, well, because
Like,
the computer, it only works with infrared, and so if you're outside it doesn't really work.
oh, no way.
You have to
Interesting.
be in, like, yeah, in so the sunlight kind of ruins that. So so it was crazy, you know, like if
Oh
he wanted
man.
something, I would kind of go through the alphabet because all he can do is blink at this point. And so
Oh.
so he would blink when the letter was hit, and so he was spelling out words for me. And then from there I'd kind of figure out what he needed, you
Oh.
know. So
How does that
so it
work though?
was
Because if you have to go through the alphabet, what if he actually has to blink before the letter, like you get to the letter that he will? It's like,
yeah,
like,
yeah. I guess we didn't think about that. I
so
mean,
it all,
fortunately,
he's just good at not blinking. Okay, cool.
yeah,
Like,
exactly,
nice.
exactly.
That's a good talent to
I
have.
know he is a talented guy. He's pretty
Yeah,
awesome. So
I like
yeah,
that, man. And yeah, I mean, you see, obviously you pushing him, and you see the documentary and see the stories, but then, yeah, behind the scenes, I mean, that's got to be so much, because I'm sure, even, it always amazes me too when someone like Chris or Steve, they have a positive attitude, and that there's got to be days where it's just like, what the hell is happening, just like how, like, why, just a question of why. w- all- I'm sure everyone has that question who's dealing with that. So, I mean, yeah, and you see a lot of the good stuff, but I'm sure you also, being friends with him and running with him, you probably hear, some of the other stuff behind it too, which I'm sure is hard.
yeah, for sure. And it is. It's a why me. I know in the very beginning, Chris and Steve both said, you know, in the very beginning, it's tough, right? I mean, it is. It's I'm losing my life, right? That I know it,
Hmm.
you know, but you know, at the same time, they're both so positive. It is really incredible. And that's really what turned me on to Chris, you know, was that he was so positive. He was so just like, you know, wanting to make a difference still, despite of what he had. I mean, I don't know, but he had a podcast for a while, you know,
Mm.
talking about the disease and
Oh,
things.
really?
And yeah, it's called Beckett's Battle, that he did
Okay.
with his buddy. And you know, and it was and just to be that type of example, inspiration for the disease,
Hmm.
it's incredible, you know, because me myself, like I don't know what I would do
Yeah,
if this
same.
hit me. I mean, but for both of them to be so positive and so just uplifting about it all, you know, that's what
Wow.
really gets me, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're both, their families are just so grateful for what I've done and the relationship we had, you know. And it's really incredible, you know.
I like that part of it. I like that you both that you have a relationship. Like, you're actually friends, with him or Steve. It's not just, hey, I'm going to show up and push you in a wheelchair. It's, you actually hang out and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah. No, I
legitimate.
mean, and that's important because, you know, I mean, he's still my friend, you know, and so I will still maybe like I don't hang out as much as I should, but maybe a couple times a year I'll go over his house and just hang out, and like I said,
Mhm.
we'll hang out. And even Steve, I slept over at his house probably about a week before he passed, and we just kind of hung
Wow.
out and
Yeah.
talked about things. And because they are a big part of my life.
Mm.
Yeah, the things that they've taught me, I can never repay them for. And so this, at least I can do that for them.
What are some of those things, like resilience and
Yeah,
perseverance, or just
resilience,
okay?
perseverance, how to live, every day like it's your
Mm.
last, and how to really enjoy life, really appreciate everything that we have, whether good or bad. It's all good in the long run, and just to learn and become a better person,
Yeah.
become a better person, make a difference in the world, that just those things, basic core values that they've taught,
Yeah.
or I've realized just from my journey. So
And you have 3 kids, you said?
yes, yes.
Okay. And so, but you also are a foster parent, or how is that correct?
Yes, yes, I am. So
Okay,
I have three
cool.
kids, one biological, two that we fostered,
Mm,
and
nice.
yeah, again, even then, it's a sad situation because they need to be fostered, but nonetheless,
Mhm.
to take them in and to hopefully change their lives, but really change my life as well.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing experience for sure.
And are they
Yeah,
your adoptive kids now, or are you just fostering
yeah.
for now? Oh,
So,
okay.
so Fernando, he's adopted. He's the little baby. He's 5 now.
Okay.
And Jalen, he's now a teenager. He's now 20. He's at college now.
Oh, cool.
But he's not adopted. He's still just fostered because
Oh, wow. Okay.
he gets a lot of things from the state, and so a lot of
Yeah.
benefits. And so
Yeah.
we're still, but he
Yeah.
still lives with us and everything. And
Okay,
he's a
cool.
part of our family. And
Nice.
yeah. So, so
Yeah,
yes.
how was that? How has the your journey affected your kids or your family? Has it been, yeah, for them?
I think they've loved it. From when they say it's pretty awesome. For example, London. We took them all out of school. We went to
Oh,
London
sick. Okay,
for a
cool.
week, or 10 days, and it was the
Yeah.
first time they were out of the country for two of them.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool to show them, obviously the other sides of the world and stuff. I thought
Mhm.
Jalen really enjoyed that, and to see, how life is outside of America.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And then even just, showing them, what I do, and pushing people, and doing stuff for others. Hopefully that, I think that's left a mark, an impression on them of
Yeah.
what I feel is very important in life.
And I feel like
So
that's one of those things that even if they don't express it outright or openly, it's embedded in them, and they'll come back
yeah,
someday down the road.
yeah, and as a parent, that's my ultimate goal, is to raise kids that are great for this world. And
Mhm.
yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
it's a good example. And also
definitely.
just like I said, kind of said before, just inclusion, right? They now talk. And Steve said this too. They're like, wow, they just come up to me and talk to me. They don't look at me weird. They don't, it's like I'm in a wheelchair. They just talk to me. I'm like, yeah, I guess so. He's like, that's not normal. That's
Yeah.
really cool that they can do that. I go, oh,
Yeah.
it's stuff that I never even have told them. Like, oh, this is how we should treat people. It's like, no, it's just what we
Mhm.
do. So
Yeah.
that's I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it
that's
is
awesome.
yeah, I teach teenagers, so I see how teenagers are sometimes. But
Yeah.
especially for Jalen, for him to go up and speak to people that others might be a little uncomfortable with. That's really cool.
Right.
That makes me very proud. So
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
yeah.
very cool. So do you have plans to do are you still gonna do more wheelchair races in the future? Do you have any other plans in the immediate future?
Not much. I want to run something in September, early
Okay.
September, because I want to try and BQ, because I feel like I kind of owe that to myself to
Mm,
qualify on my own, run it on my own. Because, like I told you, Boston, the first time I ran it was pretty bad experience. Other than
yeah.
that, though, 6 star was such a huge goal for me. it's kind of unique. You don't see that very often.
Hmm.
It's amazing for the person as well as the family and the whole community to kind of get around,
Yeah.
and to spread awareness. So I would love to push people with ALS specifically, just because I think for ALS, it's such a horrible disease, but also a lot of them used to be athletes. And
Yeah.
so, to kind of also give them their competitive fire back, and to kind of,
Right.
to give that to them, it's a great gift that I can give them. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I would love to do that.
That's awesome.
And like, so I ran Nashville like a week after London, because I
Oh
ran with my
wow.
niece. And so
Okay.
I tried to push somebody for that, and just things kind of didn't work out. And so, so I know it's hard to kind of align the stars so I can push
Hmm.
somebody, but, if anyone's willing to be pushed, I would love to
Yeah.
push them.
Okay. You heard it here. You heard it here, folks.
Yes,
Bobby's
yes,
volunteering.
I'm
If you're
volunteering.
in Southern California.
Oh, they could be anywhere in the
Okay,
United
so
States. I'll fly
you
out
come
there,
out.
and I'll,
All right.
yeah, maybe come out there, do a couple training runs, and then maybe come out and do a race. Just
That's cool.
because it's something that the whole family enjoys,
Yeah.
and they still talk about the families themselves.
Oh, I'm
They've
sure.
all
Yeah.
really, yeah, been moved by it,
How
which is great.
I meant to ask when I was talking about the logistics of wheelchair racing. Do you do different strength or core or like anything like that to help prepare yourself better for it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I do more upper body stuff because
Okay.
you are pushing, especially up the hills, even down the hills.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, like, my first marathon I did, my triceps were just absolutely on fire because
Oh,
it
really?
was a lot of, yeah.
Wow.
So it was tough, but
Okay.
it is what it is, right? It's part of it. And like every race, you learn from every race, and it makes you
Yeah.
better. So, so that was definitely the one thing. So yeah, so I do a lot more upper body stuff with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like thinking like if I ever did a wheelchair race, like pushing someone, I feel like that would be the one thing that would finally actually unintentionally get me a BQ because I'd be so committed to being I'd be like, I can't let this person down. I have to be in great shape and I
Hmm,
have
hmm.
to actually be fit. And then I would just actually force myself in that way to actually be in the best shape I could be.
No, it is. I mean, my training blocks when I know I'm pushing somebody is absolutely
Yeah.
awesome. Like that first race when we ran with Chris. I mean, it was COVID time, and so we
Hmm.
signed up for a race and it was shut down. So I'd start my training, and then we'd have to
Hmm.
kind of stall it and then kind of go again. So I mean, I was in great shape. It was
Oh, I
like,
bet.
man,
Yeah.
yeah. And even after the race, I was like, "Are you excited?" He's like, dude, that was just business, man. We qualified for Boston. That's kind of what we came here to do. I was like, okay, like, hey, that's right, man.
Yeah.
so so yeah, so you're right. I mean, it just inspires you, and marathon to run a marathon. The training is the key, and when
Yeah.
you're inspired to train every day, like you are excited. It's like
Yeah.
because you're doing it for somebody. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
That's cool,
I,
man.
I I try to pretend that I'm pushing somebody just so I can train like that again, but it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Did you ever, when you were training, did you ever push the wheelchair just with cinder blocks in it or something like to get like a imitation of it? I don't know.
No, I think it's
Okay.
just because, like, for example, Chris lived in Lakewood, which is probably about 20 minutes from where I lived, and so
Uh-huh.
we would run twice a week. Like we'd do a tempo
Oh,
run,
okay. So that's like
as
good.
well as the
Yeah.
long run. Those are the two
Okay.
because those are the two most important runs I feel in a training
Right.
cycle, and so he would run
Right.
those with me, and so
Okay.
it wasn't a problem. I
Yeah.
did think about it though, because I think one time he did have to cancel on me, on one of them. So I'm like, oh, I should just load it up with like 100 pounds and just kind of go, but I just
Uh-huh.
did it like a normal run.
Nice.
Yeah.
Since you're talking about Chris and you said he played baseball, who's his favorite baseball team?
Oh man.
Is it the
I
Dodge? Is it the
I should
Dodgers?
I should
Probably.
really know that. Let me think about this.
You need to ask him.
Oh man.
Because I'm a
I'm not
big baseball fan, but I'm a Baltimore
yeah.
Orioles fan. So since I live, obviously here, but,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
but I was just wondering. All right,
Oh
you find out and
man.
report back.
Dude, I know. I know
I mean,
he went to, he went to the University of Arizona, so we always go to Arizona. Like
oh,
I've taken him to a
okay.
University of Arizona game, basketball game and stuff. But
Yeah.
oh, baseball, it's funny because we always talk about basketball along a lot of our runs. Not really too
Okay.
much baseball. His
So
baseball
who's a
career, he
well
doesn't really like to
basketball
talk about.
then? Okay,
Yeah,
basketball. That makes sense. Who's your
yeah, yeah.
favorite? Are you guys LA Lakers fans? Or
I'm not too much an NBA fan. He likes the Lakers.
okay, okay,
I kind of grew up up north, so I like the Warriors a bit. So,
okay, gotcha.
yeah, and I mean, my
Yeah,
son loves Curry and stuff, so it's hard to not like him. So, but yeah, but I also, I mean, I coach girls basketball, so the NBA, I'm like, man, their footwork isn't, it's like they shouldn't be doing this. Shoot too many threes, it's like this is not what I preach. They don't play the
yeah,
defense that they should. So,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
so.
that's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah, so
I
I
did
kind of move on.
notice behind you. For this listing, you might not see, but there's a bunch of uh college pennants behind you. I'm assuming that's where your students ended up going to college.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. So, I've been teaching here for 20 years, and so I have probably about 200 pennants around the room. And I'm lucky enough that kids. It started off when I was writing letter of rec. They would always ask, "Oh, do you want anything?" I go, "Just give me something from your school that you're going to go to."
Yeah,
And so, and now I don't even say anything. Kids just bring it back
dude,
because they
that's
see
cool.
all this stuff on the wall, and yeah, it's really cool. It started
Yeah,
off as just something a little small, and it's become something I kind of love. You kind of go around the room, and each pennant has a story because the kid that comes back in the room, I talk to them a bit and see how they like the school and stuff. So it's cool for kids to kind of see it when they're bored of me teaching.
I thought it was cool because yeah, for sure. No, I like that. Yeah, if they wanna instead of falling asleep, they can just look at the pennants. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, where do I want to go, or something like that, right? So yeah.
I do love because shout out to Johns Hopkins University right behind your head, and then we
Yes.
got Maryland too right there. So you're representing
Yeah.
my state very well.
There. Yeah. I should have arranged them better when, but when I knew I'd be on. Yeah. 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 It is. It
Nice.
is.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
This Harvard hockey one. That one's always a cool one because
Yeah, I
if
like
you know
that.
it's the hockey one, so
I see
they're the
that.
number one girls team in the nation. So I
Oh, I
had
did
the
not know that.
girls. Yeah, I had a goalie. She was supposed to be in the Olympics.
Cool.
She was number one goalie in her age group. She went to Harvard for hockey,
Wow.
and she threw out her back her sophomore year, so was not able to finish. But that's that. So that one is a cool one, and that's also why if you're an athlete, still go to somewhere because you never know how long you can play for, right?
True.
She got an
True.
injury that kind of ended her career,
Yeah.
but still got a decent education at Harvard, so she's still doing
Yeah.
well for herself.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah,
I feel like you never know what life's gonna throw at you guys. So we basically talked
yeah,
about this whole
yeah,
episode.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It is interesting because
yeah, and something that that I thought was so weird at first, right, has really become almost my identity now. Like people, like I hardly ever have a conversation
yeah.
with people that are friends, and they don't ask me about running. It's like, wow, this has
Yeah.
never used to happen, right? It's like I wasn't even a runner. It's like now it's
Right.
something that yeah, it becomes a part of you. Or like people like even random faculty members like, hey, I started running, and so do you have any advice of what I should do? And so yeah, I mean it's awesome because it's a sport that's a lifelong sport and very healthy for you. I feel so
Yeah.
it's a lot. It's really cool to be a part of that now. So I'm like
For
almost
sure.
everybody's like coach, shall we say? So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like the most insane thing ever to me because it's same deal before I started running 9 or 10 years ago. If you would have told me 2 years before that, I would be like sitting here talking to you about running or marathoning. Job and everything else, which is just crazy to think about. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
and
It's
then
it's amazing what life can do,
it's
right?
cool.
How things change, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
that's totally it.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. So well, it was good talking to you. I really appreciate it, and it was cool hearing about your journey both with running and, running with athletes who have ALS.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about it, because it is, awareness is key, especially for this disease.
Yeah,
And for me to be able to spread the word, it really means a lot to me. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
cool. Well, congrats on getting your 6 star, and maybe we'll see you if you're doing another. I think we'll be at New York City. We'll be at New.
I'm not gonna, like I said, my focus is Boston for next year.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I tried to do it
Right.
in London, but I had a hammy that was kind of giving me some
Yeah,
issues a few
okay.
weeks prior to
Yeah.
the race. So didn't go as well, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully this one will go better. We'll see. I
Cool.
don't know.
All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
man. Well, it's good talking to you.
All
Hopefully,
right.
I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, great talking to you. Thanks again.